So I have a hard time believing that when I step into my tent, they think I'm a rock.
Welcome to 10 Minute Travels. With me, as always, is Phil Freeman.
And with me, as always, is Shane Patrick. And we're going to talk a little bit about flying helicopters in Africa.
Let's get right to it, shall we?
Nighttime in Africa, I wondered what kind of sounds you heard. Did they have a cricket or a cicada type?
Yeah, there was a few things like that happening, but they have a particular frog in the Okavango Delta that is really, really loud. And it's pretty interesting. So they are squawking to look for a female. And there are two frogs in the same species, two types of frogs in the same species that have become successful. There's the one who has the loud,
"Hey, this is me at night."
yeah, look at me, I'm super sexy, come on over. I got a sweet lily pad. So there's that frog, which that makes sense, right? In any sort of the way animals work, that makes sense that's
advertisement.
Yeah. The other frog in the same species is cagey. He doesn't have much of a call at all. But he will line himself up between a female and one of the big booming voice frogs and intercept her on her way to the pad, take her to his pad, which is, I think, pretty fascinating.
That's before closing time.
Yeah.
It's an early bird, gets a worm kind of guy.
Yeah.
And is making a living off of it.
Yep.
But if he hadn't stopped her, would she have just drifted towards the croaker up in the tree and
She sure would have.
maybe made cousins or whatever they call it?
Well, I don't know about the cousin thing, but yeah, that's where she was headed. And if one of these other ones didn't intercept her, that's where she was going.
What a way to make a living.
Mm-hmm. So those sounds were happening all the time. And then, certain times of the year you'd have insects like the termites on their migration or whatever. And pretty much every night you heard the baboons.
Did they call out?
They did. They had a couple of calls that you came to recognize, and one was kind of, "You're bothering me," to another baboon. And then there was an alarm call, which was all about leopards, because baboons sleep at night. They're like us. They're diurnal. So at sundown, they climb up a tree, and that's the deal. But leopards,
They can get them.
yeah, like a leopard one-on-one with a baboon, leopard wins. 2 baboons to 1 leopard, leopard wins. 3 to 1, leopard loses and can actually be killed. Baboons have teeth longer than lions, and yeah, they're aggressive creatures. But so you would hear that sometimes, that alarm call, like there's a leopard around. And then every once in a while, probably 6 or 8 times, I heard a leopard winning. A baboon,
And they're bummed as a troop. You can hear them.
Yep.
Just crying out.
Yeah, so you can hear that one in agony, and the rest of the troop
Mourning.
essentially mourning. Yeah.
Audio, the crisp audio of that. And you're in a tent situation, right? So you can hear anything out there.
Yeah, they're wall tents, so they have a frame, but fabric walls, and that takes a little while to get used to that, because
You're hanging it out there.
yeah, you're in, and so that's part of the thing that they tell you when you first get in country, and they do this with the tourists too. Because there are animals everywhere, and a lot of them can eat you, so everyone's freaked out, and they say, "Don't worry, when you're in your tent or in a game drive vehicle, the lion just thinks you're a big rock." I was raised on a farm.
A hippopotamus may not, though.
I hunted as a kid. I hunted as an adult. Lions can pick out one impala out of 200, the limpy one that they're going to go and eat. So I have a hard time believing that when I step into my tent, they think I'm a rock. I think the truth of the matter is that there's enough food out there that they don't have to eat us, Every once in a while it happens. There are men killed by lions every couple of years.
They've learned about living with us with firearms too over the years. You'd think, right? They know
Sure.
a boomstick.
Yep. Yeah, they're smart. They live a long time,
How old will they live?
I think males will live like 9 to 11 years and females 16-ish, something like that. Males have a harder life as if we're talking lions. They don't get credit. People say, you'll hear people all the time like, oh, lions don't even hunt. They just sit back, and then when the pride kills something, they're the first ones to eat. Truth is, their life's way harder. They only get to be with the pride till they're like 2, and then they get kicked out. And everyone else, the females, all stay with the pride, hunt as a group. Only cats that do that. The males got to survive from age 2 to 5 to 7.
Whoa, on their own.
Yep, hunting
That's
by
the
themselves
jungle.
before he's big enough to
Come back, maybe.
and try to breed, But he can't beat up a dominant male for several years after he gets kicked out.
Oh.
So if he survives all that and then he kicks out a dominant male, then he's got to defend his pride from all these other males. So
Right.
they're working. It's just different work.
How long were you in Africa?
I spent 2 years there. I was gone in that 2 years' time. I left for one of my Februaries. I went to Cambodia and a couple days in Hong Kong, and then back to Botswana. And yeah, Hong Kong's way different than Africa. Cambodia has some similarities. They don't have the animals, of course, but people making do. That's happening. The markets with skinned ducks, that's happening. That's similar.
Skinned ducks?
Yeah, that you can you don't really see that in the States, but you see it all over Asia. And you see it in Botswana too, where these animals they've been skinned and they're just hanging out in pretty hot weather, waiting to be purchased, Wasn't so much waterfowl in Botswana. There definitely is some for sale, but it was more cattle country. Cows are from Africa. That's where they're from.
It's a currency.
Mm-hmm. And so the beef there is outstanding, which is pretty surprising. You think about how hot it is, and just it didn't make sense to me before I got there, but it's really, really good. Chewier than American meat because they're actually browsing the way they're supposed to. But yeah, delicious and pretty funny. You go into a store, grocery store, or the butchers. They have a lot of butchers. That's one of the few businesses that has to be owned by a Botswanan, which is a Botswana native. So there are a lot of those. And, you go in there and looking for cuts of meat and filet, right? I mean, best cattle in the world, I'm going to get a filet. That's what I thought the first time I went to the butcher. And it was over off to the side, kind of, not under the counter, but it wasn't being displayed prominently. And I was confused. But I learned that meat that's not on a bone there is for mushimanis, which means small boy. A man eats meat with a bone. So oxtail or ribs is more expensive than filet.
I wonder where that belief came from. There's a primal quality about it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to grab a rib and, yank the meat off and throw the bone over for the hyena or whatever, but it's nice to eat a good cut of filet too. And they definitely don't cook their meat the way we do. They get all the red out of it.
Right. I'm sure refrigeration and experience and microorganisms.
Yeah, there's not much in the way of refrigeration, that's for sure.
You were mentioning the largest desert or something. One of the...
Yeah, and the Kalahari goes through 7 countries. I was essentially in the middle of it.
So water is value. Water is the dollar.
Yep. Water is money. And so that's the deal with why tourism and stuff is happening in Botswana, because they have the Okavango Delta.
That was Shane Patrick talking about flying helicopters in Africa. If you want to learn more about Shane or listen to more 10-minute travels, please check us out at 10minutetravels.com. And we want to remind you to make sure that your sense of humor matches your sense of adventure.